Heidi ho there. So today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, I think. Something, it's pretty standard in the market of everything. This is the idea and the principle of making a product go out of print. Now, obviously, if you don't know what out of print means, it simply means you take a movie, a film, whatever, you make a set amount of versions of it, certain, maybe 3,000 units only, maybe there's 10,000 units, and it gets to a point that once all those are sold, if the contractor doesn't want to renew it all because either it hasn't sold well enough, or they just want to, sell it to someone else for a higher price, then it goes out of print. For example, this one is Ronin. This is the 4K transfer from Arrow Video. Comes with the slip cover, which is cool. This is a version I got from Zavvi a while ago. It has a reverse... Fucking hell. Ow. Sorry, I just stubbed my toe. It comes with a reversible sleeve, which is nice. Probably something I probably should reverse it to eventually, but I just haven't. It also comes with a in-depth booklet. Yeah. Maybe not very in-depth, but it's still pretty good. It's got 33 pages at least, with one essay, and about the restoration stuff. So, this one I only recently found out was actually out of print, which is kind of insane. That I was like, oh my god, I've got a film that's out of print. I've got a few films that are out of print, in all fairness. Some of these that are just steelbooks that are out of print that, maybe they had a limited run, maybe their run was just gone. Like, I've got Shaolin Soccer, which was only 2,000 units, and I only found out after I bought it, from a second-hand person, and it was still mint in its shrink wrap and everything, but I'd never seen the film, so I'm like, I want to open this up and watch the film. So I've since opened it up and not watched the film. Just haven't found the time. But, Ronin, just something I just casually bought from Zavvi at some stage. I was going to say Arrow Video, but it is the Arrow Video version, but I bought it from Zavvi. And I bought it just because I just wanted to have it, I was like, it sounds like a cool film, so I bought it, and I really liked it, and my dad has watched it as well. And it's out of print now. It's worth like $100 to $150. Mint, of course. Mine's not in mint condition despite having the sleeve. It does have a dent on the top and base of the sleeve, so but I keep it on my shelf because I don't value it as a precious item. It's a Blu-ray, it's a film. It's a film I like, sure, but it being out of print's not going to make me put in the protector and hide it away from the rest of the world. I'm not going to sell that. It's a good film. I really like it. And eventually, someone else will buy the contract to reproduce the film, which is exactly what happened to Rosemary's Baby. There were a selection of Criterion films, I think it was mid-2020, I believe, if not sometime early 2021, where Criterion had a bunch of films on the channel. For example, one of them was Harold and Maude. And I watched that the last day I was on the channel. I was like, that's a good film. About 2 days later, I found out that it had been taken off the channel because it was now out of print. They didn't have the license. Criterion did not have the license anymore to sell the film. So they took it off the channel, which made sense. And now all of their versions were out of print, and they sold almost instantly. Within the next 2 days, they were all sold away from, Barnes & Noble or whatever other store you could get the physical version of. And that included Days of Heaven and Rosemary's Baby and a few others. Days of Heaven, which was reproduced by, I can't remember what company, some other company, I think the people who originally owned it, whatever, Universal or whomever, were like, oh, we want to make more money out of this, so let's just, cancel the contract with, or just not renew the contract with Criterion and just make our own version. And I know that there's a version in Australia by Imprint, which I believe is because of that deal. I don't know yet what's happened to Rosemary's Baby. I think they are doing a reprint of it, but apparently the artwork looks fucking terrible. But yeah, I bought this version from Criterion. I think I bought it in one of their sales back when you could still get their their Barnes & Noble sales shipped to Australia, because nowadays they don't like people in Australia or outside of the US and Canada buying during their sales and then shipping it to other countries. So, which really sucks for most people because Criterions are not easy to grab all the time. I usually have to get them from eBay now or Amazon. And yeah, I happen to get this, and I've only seen it the one time, to be fair. And I've only seen it on this Criterion, and it's really nice. Like, the artwork in particular is really nice. Absolutely everything about this film is gorgeous. But let's just talk about the idea of out of printing a film. Like, the whole idea is usually the production company, the distribution company, will be like, they will want it to be sold as many times as possible, but sometimes, someone will buy the contract for it. For example, well, not exactly buy the contract. I don't know the specific legal names, but pretty much the idea is that, the distribution for a market, say Blu-ray and DVD, whatever, can go to a particular person, or it can be done, like, just by the people themselves. Like, Disney produces its own films and will distribute their own films. Whereas, if it's a Wes Anderson film, he has it in his contract that his films will eventually get a Criterion release. A few of those, say, for example, like I have Isle of Dogs, and there's Bottle Rocket as well. What's the other one? Grand Budapest Hotel. All three of which got standard Blu-ray releases in Australia. However, they all differ. Well, technically. Isle of Dogs, and which still doesn't even have a Criterion release, got a standard Blu-ray release, standard Blu-ray DVD, whatever. Grand Budapest got a standard Blu-ray DVD, but has now been produced by Criterion for both Region A and now Region B. But Bottle Rocket was already produced onto Criterion for Region A. I don't know if the Region B market went straight to Umbrella in Australia, but it's the exact same transfer of the film, even having the Criterion logo and everything. Like, I haven't ever bought the Criterion version, even though I can buy the Region B version from Zavvi. I've never considered buying it because I already have the film. Like, I could buy it so I could have the extra content and say, look, I've now got the Criterion version, whatever, but I already do have the Criterion version. Same could be said for something like my collection of The Blob, which is the limited edition version, so it comes with the 1950s version and the 1988 version. And the 58 version is a Criterion scan. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to have a film go out of print. Like, there are a lot of occasions where a steelbook or something that's collectible will only have a set number. Maybe it just says limited edition, maybe it's just an edition, and then it sells out and then they just never reproduce it. Or maybe they reproduce it a few months after its initial release, like they'll have it up for pre-order, say in April, comes out in August, they re-release it in September to November period. It is what it is. It's usually just a supply and demand kind of thing. It can be all kinds of things. Like, there's Star Wars steelbooks that were released at Zavvi, and, only a few of them had re-releases, mostly because I'd assume that a lot of people bought them. And a lot of people really wanted them, so they did a re-release for some of them. And most of them go for like hundreds of dollars on eBay. And they still go for that much, despite the re-release, because it's still sold out upon second re-release. So it's an interesting concept. Like, of course, it's not exactly like a fantastical thing of you have a matter of choice. It's just like the consumer doesn't have choice whether the product is limited or not. It's all about the distributor. If the distributor wants 2,000 units of Shaolin Soccer to be on Steelbook for Zavvi to release, then that's what they're going to do. Maybe they may write in the description on their website, only 2,000 units produced, and then it just gets released, and it eventually sells out. Maybe it sells out quick, maybe it sells out slow. I don't really know. I wasn't there when it came out, so I don't really know. Maybe it just gets to a point where it all just sells out and it ends up becoming a rarity on eBay because people are like, well, it's sold out from the original site from Zavvi, and, I have one mint condition. I'm going to sell this off for $200 because it's one of 2,000 units, despite not having a number saying it's of 2,000 units. But, I don't know, I feel like there's a difference where you have something that has a production number saying, oh, it's only got 1,000 to 10,000 units. But realistically, everything at one point or another has that number. They just don't stipulate. Maybe they'll say it's limited edition, which is, I'd say, usually below 6,000 units. Maybe it's below 10,000. But it's like there's a lot of units to go around, and maybe they'll, you know, reproduce them after the initial market, because like same goes for books. Books can have that where they'll have an initial print, and they'll end up getting to the point where that print will sell out. So it's like, cool, okay, we know that the initial market wanted it, and it's all sold out. Now let's do another printing. The second printing, there's a lot more of them, and it even says second edition, whatever. That first edition print has now sold out. Most people initially might have just bought it to read it, whatever, given it to a friend, however it be. Some people will collect it, read it, keep it in mint condition, and then sell it like 100 years later. Probably not 100 years later, but, you know, like 50 to 100 years later, maybe their grandkids, whatever, will sell it. And they'll be like, oh, it's a mint condition, or it's at least a first edition version of this book. So it's just a printing press deal. It happens with movies, it happens with books. Everything has a certain number, and that's just how it goes. Obviously, there's the anticipation that eventually people will miss out. There were a lot of people who did miss out on buying this version of Rosemary's Baby. I did not get to buy that Criterion of Harold and Maude, and will never be able to now because it's worth like $300 online. And I'm like, I'm good, thanks. I spent $16 in a month and for the channel and watched it there, and I was like, this is a fun film. I'd like to watch it again, but now I never will. So, you know, that kind of sucks. But yeah, I guess there's also the argument of like, something can go out of print from an initial, you know, person, maybe someone like Arrow or Criterion will do a release, but then it will be reprinted, go out of print from Criterion, be reprinted elsewhere, but that reprint could be arguably better. Like, it could be a 4K UHD, it could be just like an Ultimate Collection version, like something like that, but then it might not have a lot of what the Criterion version has, like... Oh, I just broke it. Anyway. Fucking out of print, I just dropped it. Anyway. Like, this version has... It's got a whole new restoration, but it's, like, not 4K or anything. It's just a digital restoration. It's got some documentaries and interviews and stuff like that, like, and a booklet, which is probably the rarest element to it. But, you know, the new release might be exactly identical to it, like, might be an almost identical transfer. Might be better. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there's much else to say about it. It's an interesting thing when you... It's more or less the facet of, you know, me owning these two films and finding out that they've gone out of print and being like, holy shit, you know. Like, you don't really think about that when it comes to buying stuff. Collectors always do, of course, because if it's out of print and mint condition, it adds a hell of a lot of value to it, you know. You've got all these little elements to it that can make it rarer, like, is it mint condition? You know, does it have any damages? Is it in a shrink wrap? Is it out of print? All that kind of jazz. So, yeah. Look, I've got plenty of steelbooks that are like that. For example, my Alita steelbook, out of print. I've got a bunch of Mondo steelbooks. They're all out of print, you know. It's just a thing. Anyway, thanks for watching. What do you think about out of print things? Do you think it's unfair to the consumer because things go out of print, maybe they don't get printed again for such a long time? Dawn of the Dead, for example, had one Blu-ray release back in like the early 2000s and didn't get reprinted again till like last year when the Arrow Video got their hands on it, which, in all fairness, good. Actually, was that Arrow or was that Second Sight? Second Sight got their hands on it and was able to do a 4K UHD restoration. And honestly, that restoration's fantastic. I'd only seen it myself personally in cinemas like 2 years before I got that restoration and copy, because I was never able to watch it because, you know, it was out of print everywhere. So I'm like, well, I can't buy this film, you know. There's a Godzilla film. This one, Godzilla versus Biolante. The DVD, I don't know if the DVD is out of print, but the Blu-ray is worth like $300. But the DVD is worth like $40 to $50. So, you know, it is what it is. People be crazy, but that's just how it is. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more. Give me your thoughts on out-of-print media. It can be insane, can't it? Anyway, see you next time.